Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another video from the Denver Prophet Rebel. Rated C for Catholic Conservative Chaos. I'm edgy like Deadpool, but I've got a heart like Mr. Rogers. Well, today, Star Wars Day, May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you. Actually, this comes a little bit late. I'm recording this and it's almost May the 5th by now. But hey, it's a cool Star Wars video, right? Well, myself, I was 9 years old when Star Wars came out in 1977. And back then, you didn't have any secondary market. You didn't have home video. You didn't have VHS players because they cost about as much as a new car. And movies weren't available to watch anyway. If you wanted to watch a movie a second time, you went to the theater and you saw it. So the original Star Wars had a run of something like 56 straight weeks in the theater in my hometown. For all you listeners of BuzzFeed out there, that's over a year. Movies would just stay in theaters until people stopped buying tickets. I remember going out of my mind at the cliffhanger at the end of Empire Strikes Back, and then literally cheering, standing up and cheering, when Palpatine got his bony butt thrown down the reactor pit in Death Star 2, when I saw Episode 6 on opening day in 1983. I've got myself a decent amount of collectibles over the years. Here is a comic book of A New Hope. Here is a set of Star Wars blueprints I got from way back in the day. I've got a couple of hundred of the Star Wars EU books, and we'll talk about that a little later. I also had the Death Star playset, the one with the trash compactor with the foam trash and the little rope that you could run across the bridge which extended. Man, I wish I still had that. I got it from Santa when I was 12 years old. When Lucasfilm was a private company, the films came out infrequently, and their releases were truly an event. We had 3 years between films, and we had 16 years between trilogies. Absence made the heart grow fonder. It was a massive epic saga which generated billions, but at the same time it was run by a Lucasfilm that was a close-knit, almost mom-and-pop type of an entity. Now, Lucas made some good decisions and some bad decisions over the years, but at least it was real. It was based on a hero's journey and not politics, and storytelling mattered. You might not have liked Jar Jar Binks very much or midichlorians very much, but at least you knew it was George Lucas's story and that he had an overarching vision for the storyline as a whole. Now, Disney's Star Wars has been just an unmitigated disaster and a horrific train wreck. Identity politics and social justice warrior politics have poisoned the franchise. But that's what left-wing progressives do. They aren't true geeks or true fans who buy products and are actually passionate about the universe that these films have created. They just want to wreck them like they do everything else. And after they've left a scorched earth and pile of ashes of its former self, well, their work is finished.
Your work here is finished, my friend.
Disney's also industrialized things, and they started churning out multiple movies in a year. The most is done to Star Wars what Jack Frost did to the North Pole in Santa Claus 2.
North Pole! North Pole!
At the new theme park, I can just picture the stormtroopers dancing in a kick line, singing Death Star, Death Star. There was also no one person who owns the overarching storyline. So you had drop plot points and inconsistencies from director to director, such as from J.J. Abrams in The Force Awakens and Rian Johnson in the disastrous Last Jedi. Oh, you have the completely overpowered Mary Sue character of Rey. You had purple-haired gender studies professor in Admiral Holdo. Then you had the deconstruction of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker's characters in the rather unsatisfying and pointless deaths of both of these characters. You had the Dawson's Creek Twilight hybrid storyline of Rey and Kylo Ren. These movies have just broken my heart. And in my heart, I do not consider them Star Wars canon. Which brings me to probably the worst thing Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy did, and it wasn't even the films. It was tossing the entire Star Wars Expanded Universe canon. What I loved most about Star Wars was the Expanded Universe, or EU as it's known. In addition to the comics, games, and young adult novels, there were well over 200 adult novels. They covered an era that ranged from the Old Republic 25,000 years before the events of A New Hope. That's when the Jedi first fought with swords and not lightsabers, all the way to the events of 137 years after A New Hope. You could live in the galaxy far, far away, way beyond just the films. And the books are so much more intricate than the films. They get more into the science fiction aspect of things. They introduce new characters, like Luke Skywalker's wife, Mara Jade. How many people knew that in the old canon, Luke Skywalker did have a wife? You had the Han Solo-like figure of Talon Karrde. Then you had Grand Admiral Thrawn. And Han Solo, by the way, already had a backstory. And no, his name wasn't given to him by some Imperial border agent. Now, I've read nearly every adult novel. I'd get them on the first day of publication, pre-order them from Amazon, and sometimes I'd read them in a couple of days. Disney canon has relegated the old EU novels to the realm of what they call legends. Well, they've done to the books pretty much what they've done to the movies. There are constant LBGT characters and themes we see in almost every EU book. I mean, front and center among these is the acerbic and obnoxious soy boy Chuck Wendig. And when the story compilation known as From a Certain Point of View came out, it's an anthology of different Star Wars stories, there was one story that was basically PG-13 softcore homosexual porn. I'm not kidding you. Well, that's when I gave up on the Disney EU, and I haven't read anything else since. Now, for those of you who want to be part of the old Star Wars expanded universe, which is what Disney calls Legends, well, I can tell you, you've got years of enjoyment ahead of you. You can replace what Disney has done with Star Wars and this new history. Now, you can explore the old EU Legends canon in many different ways. You can read by time period. You can go to the New Republic, which are the events that happened post-Return of the Jedi in the old Legends canon. You can read stories that took place between the movies, like between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, for example. You can go to the Old Republic, stories that take place thousands of years before A New Hope. You can read by character if you want. There are books centered on Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Mace Windu. But my personal recommendation, if I were to pick one place to start, it would have to be the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire trilogy. It came out in 1991. This is responsible for the resurgence in Star Wars interest. Before 1991, there were a scattering of EU books. There were a few that came out. There was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the Han Solo Adventures. But what really made George Lucas re-energized about Star Wars and what convinced him that there was still an interest and a demand for it was probably the Timothy Zahn trilogy. They're probably the best written books in all of the EU. They have many plot items that made it into the movies, like Coruscant. It made its first appearance and became movie canon when Timothy Zahn came up with it. Grand Admiral Thrawn was also Zahn's creation, and he later appeared in the Disney Rebels series. Bottom line is, read these. I would say Timothy Zahn is the best EU author, bar none. Now, however, my favorite single old canon EU book might be the book Kenobi. This is one of the last Legends novels before the Dark Times, before the Disney Empire. Now, I like Kenobi so much because I'm partial to Westerns. And that's what this book was. It was basically a Western that took place on the planet of Tatooine. One of the things that makes it very interesting is you get a little bit of a closer look at the Tusken Raiders, their culture, who they were, what they are, and you see a little bit more than just monsters. There's a little bit of depth of character in their history, in their lore, why they wear the face and body coverings. And most importantly, this wasn't based on the latest and greatest super weapon or the newest version of the Death Star, but it was a simple story set on a desert planet. The moisture farmers were the ranchers and the cowboys. The Tusken Raiders were the Indians. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, kind of in the middle, maybe kind of like a Shane sort of a character. Anyway, I recommend that single book highly if you wanted to start in a single place. In any case, I commend to you the Star Wars Expanded Universe pre-Disney, what Disney is calling Legends. If you're a Star Wars fan who hasn't been there yet, well, like I said, you could spend just about the rest of your life reading them, especially if you're an old man like me. There are, again, literally hundreds of novels, including over 200 adult novels. So, I recommend strongly, can't recommend strongly enough, if you're depressed about Star Wars and depressed about what Disney's done to it, go to the old EU. Go to the Legends books, because they're wonderfully rich stories and they flesh out the universe so well. I would finish off by saying may the 4th be with you, but I think what we should do with the passing of Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca in all the films, at the age of, I think he was 74. Rest in peace and God bless. And beware of the truth.